Hi, hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. So, exciting for me, nerve-wracking, first time I've ever been on YouTube, so bear with me, I guess I'll learn as I go. The truth is, I have a message to share, things that I've learned over the last 20 years. Just kind of scares me a little, and I don't think enough people realise really what's going on outside. So, hence my channel, and I'll give you a little explanation as to how I became interested in starting this channel. I've been awake since November the 11th, 2001, when I saw two buildings, that's the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center in Manhattan, being taken down by a controlled explosion. The whole world mainstream media didn't see it the same way. In fact, it appeared that the media wanted to convince me that the buildings just collapsed simultaneously with the same dust cloud, same mushroom coming out, and the same free fall speed, and the fact that both fell absolutely perfectly onto the spot that they stood. Now, later that day there was a third building, and that's in the picture behind me here. I'll just play a little snippet. I don't know if many people have seen W7 falling down, but there you go. Sags in the middle, corners are standing, and yeah, there it goes again. Absolutely straight down at free fall speed. Now I can go into that in great depth, but I'm not going to in this video. As I said, this is an introduction to as to my interests. So there's another picture of the first of the two Twin Towers that fell down. Now, the official story says that the pancake effect, the lower levels gave way, and the building sort of hammered its way down, which is nonsensical. I studied architectural technology for a couple of years. I understand a little bit about building materials and strengths, and as many experts say around the world, that it's never been heard of before. It's certainly never happened since. It's very questionable. So the question behind me is if the pancake theory happened, why did the top of the building crumble to dust and just disintegrate? Now there's videos of this. You can see as the building's standing perfectly square, there's an explosion that runs down the building. Not the building falling down, that's the explosion working its way down through the top of the building. As I say, I'm not an expert in controlled explosions or anything, but I have seen it firsthand many times in Dundee. There's multi-stories been brought down. North of England, we had these beautiful hourglass shaped big chimneys for power stations that were decommissioned when we stopped burning coal. There was lots of these around England, and once or twice I went and saw them being blown up, just like the Twin Towers, the same dust cloud mushrooming out, and the building falling perfectly onto the spot in a nice little pile of rubble. So, I've always been interested in just freedom, and why the government seems to think it can take away the freedoms that we have. So, it appeared to me that within days of the terrorist attack, that the US government whipped up a frenzy with the media of fear amongst the populace and a bloodlust for revenge. So within a week, the US, aided by the UK, Tony Blair, and Australia invaded Afghanistan, said to be under control of the Taliban at the time, who were allegedly aiding and abetting Al-Qaeda supporters, and they were hiding Osama bin Laden, who was allegedly responsible for the hijackings of the planes that were flown into the Twin Towers. So the lasting legacy of 9/11 is not one of a tragedy inflicted upon America by another country or group of terrorists, but a disgusting abomination orchestrated and implemented by certain factions within the military-industrial complex against the people of America. Moreover, since 9/11, the invention or creation of the Patriot Act on October the 26th, 2001, brought about by a certain George Bush. The United States Patriot Act is an abbreviation of Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism, Act 2001. Very broad-reaching. And it seems to be from that day on, you can be accused of something and you are basically guilty until you prove you're innocent. Now in the UK it certainly seems to be the same. Tommy Robinson recently was locked up for a couple of months, solitary confinement, because he's trying to just speak freely and they wanted to silence him, so they did. But he wasn't able to. Anyway, we'll get back to that at some other time. In short, the war on terror meant we are in a state of war perpetually, which has been used to further strip away our personal rights and freedoms. It's led to the culture of guilty until proven innocent and allows for indefinite detention with no evidence or trial if you are suspected to have links to terrorism. This is the same stance as the UK now has and has had since Tony Blair introduced the Anti-Terrorism Crime and Security Act in 2001. So as I say, if they accuse you or want to accuse you, then you have to prove that you are not involved in any way. Difficult to do, difficult to prove a negative. But it's not how the law is supposed to be. Then in 2003, the illegal invasion of Iraq, brought about in the UK by the infamous dodgy dossier and the apparent lack of evidence at the Joint Intelligence Security Committee and Foreign Affairs Select Committee meetings. Dr. David Kelly was outspoken about the validity of the claims of the presence of biological weapons, as were they are accusing Iraq of having, or the concerns of them being able to be deployed within 45 minutes. This 45 minutes claim is said to be attributed to the Director of Communications for Tony Blair, Alistair Campbell. Now, if you don't know, Dr. David Kelly has been out in Iraq for, I think it's like 10 years, and various other high pressure jobs. He was going to report to the committee that were waiting on an opinion of Hans Blick's UN intervention in Iraq. They were basically looking into weapons of mass destruction, which Dr. David Kelly was going to report back to our government. He was about to say there is no grounds, no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. In fact, the two mobile units in question, particularly two vans, were actually for manufacturing nitrogen to fill up balloons. So, a couple of days before Dr. David Kelly reports back to the Commission, something the Commission don't want to hear, His body's discovered in the woods near his home and in apparent suicide. Let's just hold this up. So we've got Dr. David Kelly. David Christopher Kelly, CMG, was a Welsh scientist and authority of biological warfare employed by the British Ministry of Defence and formerly a weapons inspector of the United Nations Special Commission in Iraq. Born May 1944, died 17th of July 2003, cause of death, presumed suicide, hemorrhage from inside wounds on the left wrist in combination with coproximal ingestion. So, the government didn't want an inquest into how he turned up dead. It was basically made out that he couldn't handle the pressure of being in Iraq or reporting his findings to the committee, and he took his own life. Now, if you've ever watched James Bond or read any spy novels, as I did when I was young, straight away when I heard this in the news that he turned up suicided in the woods, I'm just like, wow. Yeah, that's obvious to me, but again, nobody else I spoke to even saw it that way. Thought I was quite crazy for thinking such a thing. So, Andrew Gilligan, a BBC journalist, met with Dr. David Kelly on May the 22nd, 2003 to discuss the claims of the government's the claims of the government Iraq had mobile weapons laboratories, which is what David Kelly was in Iraq investigating. As I said, there were 2 mobile units. The Observer ran the article, that's the Observer, mainstream newspaper, ran the article on the 15th of June 2001. Alleging mobile germ warfare trailers had been discovered in Iraq, but actually not mobile germ warfare laboratories. These are exactly what Iraqis said they were: facilities for the production of hydrogen to fill balloons. It was confirmed at the Hutton inquiry that Kelly was the source of the quote. So it got tossed around in the media that he'd gone to the press, and that's kind of the reason that he wanted to kill himself. Yeah. Anyway, Kelly was called to appear in front of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee on 15th of July. He turned up dead 2 days later. After going for a walk in the woods, he allegedly cut his left wrist with a penknife and bled to death. As soon as I heard this apparent suicide, I knew he had been silenced. Our own government did this. He didn't want to go along with the false claim that would ultimately be used to justify the invasion of Iraq, an illegal invasion of a sovereign nation. I protested this war with fellow citizens in Edinburgh. I would say 4,000, 5,000 people marched peacefully through the city centre down to the office of the First Minister, where we held a demonstration and voiced our feelings to our government. Now, I know around the country that day there were many other tens of thousands of people protesting what we knew to be an illegal war. We knew it was illegal, not just morally questionable, but the fact our government was lying to us, making up a dodgy dossier and claims that Iraq could use biological weapons within 45 minutes. It was nonsense, utter nonsense. Now, I'm not an expert, but that was getting put upon us, and a lot of us realised at the time that it was just not acceptable. So, within days we were dropping bombs. My barber at the time in Edinburgh, his name was Mustafa, and he was an Iraqi. He'd been in Edinburgh for 3.5 years, cut my hair for 3 years. Within weeks of the invasion in Iraq, he left Scotland to go back to Iraq to be with his family. I never heard from him again. So you can see for yourself what I was witnessing in the media and how it was not actually as it was. I could see there was a bigger plan with some other hidden agenda. But who? Why? How could it be happening in the UK? How can I trust my government that I vote for? How can I trust the media? So I began looking into things that have happened in my lifetime, examining the facts presented by the media and the facts according to other sources and my own first-hand experience. I soon realised all news outlets have a political bias. They will tell a story and slant a viewpoint to suit their own political ideologies and interests. Or if someone paid enough money, they could get their story in print. So you can see how this can affect freedom. If you don't have money to get your story in print, nobody's going to hear you. History's only ever been written by the winners. So yeah, as I was saying, if you can't get a platform, how do you voice your concerns? How do you get people to hear you? Before the internet was not as easy to utilise, it used to be public libraries were the best way to access information or talking to people. Nowadays, it is truly incredible how easy it is to research, verify, cross-check facts, which in turn has led to a growing community of online citizens, citizen journalists or investigators, working through the myriad of information and misinformation there is out there, freely available online, just to find out the truth, the real actual truth. Turns out it's not just the events of 9/11 or the dodgy dossier that I've been lied about. So I feel I can no longer just sit back and do nothing. It's not good enough to know what's going on and to not shine a light on the darkness. For whatever reason, I've been made aware of a different reality than most people can see, or don't have time to see, or have just never thought anything other than what they've been programmed to think. There's a veil of distraction, a very deliberate attempt to subjugate the human race. JFK knew about this plan. Famously quoted to have said, "There is a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, I intend to expose that plot." 7 days after that quote, he was assassinated. Obviously, Kennedy wasn't working alone. The group President Kennedy intended on exposing were able to seize control of the government from within. It's a faceless organisation whose tentacles reach every level of every department of office, influencing key institutions and undermining the positions and values that they, people, have been elected to protect. This group has actively sought to bring down the Republic of the United States of America, to enslave every man, woman and child under a one world government. They call themselves, nowadays, occasionally, the New World Order. And that's going to deserve a few videos. So, present day, let's cut to the chase. There's a silent war going on inside America. There's a strong force of good versus this evil cabal. As I said before, President Kennedy had a team of good Americans that stood for freedom, justice, peace. They understood what the American Constitution was and valued it dearly. It was brought about after the First Civil War and was gifted to the people. Freedom, the right to own property, the right to speak out, the right to protect themselves and your family and property with a gun, the right to work hard and be rewarded for that work. The American dream. So, although President Kennedy was assassinated and never had the chance to end the Federal Reserve and break up and scatter the FBI and CIA on the breeze, his good Americans never went away. They remained inside the government, waiting. It would seem that this group have held in there, waiting for this another chance. Then along comes Donald Trump. Now, whether Trump went to them or they contacted Trump is only known to them. However, there is speculation that Trump was asked to come and serve his country. You see, Trump isn't part of the corrupt elite. These criminal cabal that run the media stations, or the banking corporations, or Hollywood, or bankroll politicians, they don't like him. And that deserves another few videos. So there's an interesting correlation with Trump's family and previous governments. You see, Trump's uncle, John G. Trump, he was a professor of electrical engineering at MIT and later worked or helped the FBI. He's a truly great man, as Donald Trump would say. John G. Trump worked on making X-rays machines to kill cancer, and then he worked on radar technology for the military before helping the FBI. Well, he's said to have, when the FBI seized Nikola Tesla's life work in boxes out of his Manhattan hotel room when he died, go through all of his stuff. And the American Secret Services, intelligence agencies, whatever, held on to that stuff for a couple of years before they gave them all the belongings back to the family. So you can imagine what an amazing mind Tesla was. Maybe you don't know, maybe you never heard of him. But he, light years ahead of his time. It's incredible. Google death ray or things like that. Anyway, Tesla is something I will discuss in another video. So there is a link between Donald Trump and JFK, kind of the same people, same organisation of good people inside the government, trying to overthrow the maleficent wrongdoers that, as I say, seized control of the government when JFK was assassinated. And we've had some really bad presidents in the USA since. The Bush Senior, Clinton, Bush Junior, Obama. Yeah, evil people. We could go into what they've done during their time or before their time or even after their time in other videos. As I say, this is just an introductory video into the things I'm interested in. So, the good people inside the government. These people have been aware that the evil cabal operating worldwide for some time now. The good guys, or white hats, witnessed the reign of George Bush, Bill Clinton, W. Bush and Barack Obama, or aka Barry Soetoro, a Kenyan who was questioned to produce his birth certificate, never did. When as soon as he left office, the first thing he did, pulled out his birth certificate to say he was not an American citizen. He should not have served as the President of the USA. The evil cabal were going to put Hillary Clinton in next, but something happened. Trump. So, then came drops, the Q drops. It's pretty much a year ago to the day that I heard of, or became aware of, these postings. It was pretty much a year to the day, in fact, I heard on the radio that there was the light aircraft collision. Let me just get this up. Hope you can see that. There was a light aircraft collision over the Rothschilds' estate at High Wycombe. Straight away, I'm thinking, whoa, someone's had a pop. Literally, it was in the news, Rothschild was having a flying lesson and there had been an accident. Maybe it wasn't in the news that day he was having a flying lesson, but I did some digging that evening. So it didn't take much digging to find out that there was a message posted the previous day on an anonymous chat site, 4chan, allegedly directed to the Rothschilds, or Linda Rothschild particularly. That blew my mind. Big props to Jordan Sather of Destroying the Illusion, as he was the guy who put me onto this. Thanks, you're a man. Yeah, it wasn't long before Roy Potter and Tracy Beans got involved and daily Q analysis became quite a thing online, which brings us to present day. So the Q drops basically have been putting up information for 1 year. For the first few months it was the most incredible, mind-blowing stuff. Things about past governments, links to monetary organisations, charity funds, hedge funds, slush funds, gets into child trafficking, human trafficking, and some real dark stuff. Now I remember a couple of years ago hearing about the Lolita Express, Bill Clinton's trips to some dodgy private island in the oh yeah, anyway, we'll go into that in other videos. But I just want to make people aware that the world that you're spoon-fed in the media, the newspapers, it's not what is really happening. You've seen the film The Matrix, when it's a digital augmented reality that's going on. Well, it's kind of like that a lot. I'm not telling you it's a projection, that's not what I'm saying, it's real, you know, go out and touch it. But the people running the show don't like you much. In fact, there's meetings, think tanks, people that plan 50 years, 100 years ahead, what society, what we're going to do to society. Have meetings for depopulating the planet. Talk about making vaccines that are going to help with the depopulation. And it's not in the press, it's not in the news. It's quite the opposite that's in the news. They tell you to take vaccines, and so I just want to let people know that I'm one of the people who knows what's going on, and I'm going to help spread the truth. Everything that I found out over the years, there's been great people say, William Cooper, Google him, my word, hundreds of hours he spent. A man that they silenced eventually, because he just knew too much. But I have 2 children, and I feel like I have to protect them from things like chemtrails or geoengineering. Something that I've been aware of for like 10, 15 years. Something that, well, people laugh in my face. I constantly take photographs. I'll put some photographs, maybe try and link some into this. And then back on the 8th of October, there was an article in the Guardian newspaper, mainstream media, saying that potentially we're going to use geoengineering to help fix climate change. Misinformation. But the fact is, they used the key word because too many people are knowing about it, so they're having to come out and give us a half-truth. So weather manipulation is a big thing. Turns out they're dropping metal and stuff on us, aluminium. It's on your food, it's in the water. I drink distilled water. I've got a water distiller. I bottle my own water. What that does is takes all the dirt out of me, takes the aluminium out of my brain, prevents me from getting Alzheimer's, which, by the way, these days is endemic. People don't seem to question it. Anyway, I better get off now. I see that's 30 minutes. My first video, introductory video. So let me know what you think, and I'll be speaking to you soon. Thanks.